Howdy, folks. Welcome back to Draft and Drive. My name is Josh. I'm here with my sister Alexia. We are siblings who are NASCAR enthusiasts, and today we're going over the weekend at Martinsville Speedway, starting with O'Reilly, going into Cup, going into our off-track news. Alexia, if you would, start us off with the O'Reilly series.
All right, I'm going to take a big breath here because I don't know if you can see this, but this is 2 full pages of notes for the O'Reilly series, so buckle up.
In, folks.
All right, qualifying got rained out, so Justin Allgaier got put on the pole. Caution, lap 34. Luke Baldwin hard into the wall. This was his first ever race. LeVar Scott also had some damage. Most of the front of the field stayed out during the caution, and then those who did pit, there were 3 speeding penalties, and they were Ryan Sieg, Austin Hill, and Parker Retzlaff. 4 to go in stage 1, Garrett Smithley spun, and then because of that, they ended the stage, so Justin Allgaier won stage 1. Jeremy Clements gets into the back of Nick Sanchez. His front end of his car gets bashed in and smoking like crazy. It ends up bringing out a caution after a couple laps, and brought out a caution for fluid on the track. Jeremy Clements ended up going to the garage. Lap 106, there was a caution out for debris. Stage 2 winner was Austin Hill. Caution with 118 to go. Parker Retzlaff spins. Patrick Starpoli got loose under him. 107 to go. Another caution. Patrick Starpoli and Kyle Sieg spun. Another caution. 70 to go. Ryan Ellis spun. Another caution. 54 to go. Garrett Smithley and Brad Perez spun. 34 to go, another caution. Nick Sanchez, whose cars looks like it raced in a demolition derby, ended up having a flat tire. It was banged in on every piece of sheet metal on that car. Caution, 23 laps to go. Ross Chastain spun. And then the big one happened. You don't think the big one happens at Martinsville? Well, it did during the O'Reilly race. Here we go. 17 laps to go. Caution. Lee Pulliam missed a shift, and that created a pileup. It involved Austin Green, Carson Quaffle, Sam Mayer, Jeb Burton, Harrison Burton, Brandon Jones, Brent Cruz, Taylor Gray, Andrew Patterson, Josh Williams, LeVar Scott, Lee Pulliam. I might have missed them because I didn't have the full list, but there was a bunch of cars involved in that wreck, and it took a bunch of good cars out of the race because Lee Pulliam was right in front. Caution, 11 laps to go. William Solowich spun. Brandon Poole came in hot going 3 wide, got together. William Solowich spun. And then Justin Allgaier won the race. There was a caution on the last lap with Raja Karuth, who spun. So they called the caution during the last lap of the race. Whew. My race pick was Sammy Smith. He ended up getting 3rd place. Who was your race pick?
My race pick was Taylor Gray. I believe he was up there, but he wound up finishing 13th, I believe, after all the crashes, all the cautions. I don't believe there was a very long green flag run the entire race. 13th place for me, which means you get to pick first for Rockingham. And then, folks, we decided that I will get to pick, because they're going back-to-back, I'll get to pick for Bristol. Lexi, who you got for Rockingham?
So I'm going back-to-back with Sammy Smith. I'm going to pick him for Rockingham. I think he is he's moving towards the front during every race. I think it's his time to shine. Junior Motorsports is on a hot streak. So I think he finally gets his first one of the season next weekend at Rockingham. Who is your first pick?
My pick is going to be the teammate of the person who crossed the line first last year. Did not ultimately win because he wound up getting DQ'd. Austin Hill is going to be my pick. He got a top 10 last year. Jesse Love crossed the line first last year before he got DQ'd. Austin Hill was strong at Martinsville. I think they're coming on strong. I pick Austin Hill to win at Rockingham. And then I guess I might as well go straight into my race pick for Bristol. I am going to pick Sammy Smith for Bristol. He was strong when they were at Bristol last April. He was strong at Martinsville. Obviously, finished 3rd place. And like you just said, Junior Motorsports on a hot streak. I believe they won, did I read 5 straight somewhere? Number 6 is coming. Well, no. There's going to be a break because Austin Hill's going to win next week. The week after that, they're going to be 6 for their last 7 races when Sammy Smith wins at Bristol. Who you got?
So I'm going to go with the guy who's hot right now, and that is Justin Allgaier. He is great at Bristol. He's won already 3 races this year. As you said, Junior Motorsports has won 5 in a row, with Shane Van Gisbergen and Kyle Larson also getting wins this year. But Justin Allgaier is on a hot streak. I think he's the guy to beat at Bristol. He's incredible at Bristol. All right, time to get number 4. You want to go into the good surprise of the race?
Sure. Let me have it.
All right, so if you look at the leaderboard, you wouldn't think about this guy, but this guy needed a good run, and he was having it, and it was Harrison Burton. Before the wreck, he was leading laps up front. He was on an alternate pit strategy, and although the day didn't go as he desperately needed it to, and, got up in some carnage, he was having a great run, and he was my good surprise, because he has been nowhere to be found this whole year so far. And like I said, leading laps, Harry B. Who was your good surprise?
My good surprise, I took the obvious one. The guy whose name I did not hear of before we started the weekend, Lee Pullman. Guy's leading laps. Granted, yes, he did wind up wrecking half the field. I do have to acknowledge that, but still was very good up until that point, and even after that point, finished top 10. Very good day, very solid day, and I'm glad Dale Jr. has given these guys, who are, a ton of racing experience, but just for whatever reason never moved up to, moved up in the series progression. Glad he's giving them a chance. My bad surprise of the race. Oh.
Well, that's good. That gives me a segue, because I wanted to say something. So with Lee Pulliam, I have a little fun fact. That man has popped up in my suggested Facebook friends for about 2 months, and I'm like, who in the hell is this guy? All of a sudden this weekend, I didn't realize he was racing, and I'm like, oh my god, that is my suggested friend that's been there for 2 months. Obviously, I would never add him, but I was like, oh my god, that's the guy. So, yeah, he's been in my suggested friends for 2 months. I don't know how the hell he got there, but I've known what he's looked like for 2 months. All right, now I'm ready for your bad surprise. That was a good segue. Thanks for coughing.
You're welcome. And we're keeping that in, too. My bad surprise of the race, you might be like, is this really a surprise? But Garrett Smithley, I believe, crashed at least 2 or 3 times. The guy was on the screen for all the wrong reasons. The booth kept talking about Clippy. I'm too young for that. I don't know what's going on there. I got tired of seeing it, and every time I saw it, it didn't spark joy to me. My bad surprise was a bit weak this weekend. What about you? Who was your bad surprise?
This is kind of a shock. I thought he'd run a little bit better, but Ross Chastain was in DGM equipment, and while DGM hasn't been running necessarily up front this year, well, to be fair, actually, Carson Quaffle was doing pretty well at, COTA earlier this year, but Ross Chastain was nowhere to be found. Obviously he spun or whatever and was involved in the wreck, but he was nowhere to be found all day. He was running in the teens, and I just thought he would be running in the top 10, with these O'Reilly regulars, and didn't see him all day. Wouldn't even have known he was in the race unless I saw his name pop up on the leaderboard, and then obviously the spin, so yeah, Ross Chastain.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to dive into Cup?
Yep, I'll take her away here. Denny Hamlin starts the race on pole, and he winds up leading early. William Byron took the lead on lap 40, and Denny Hamlin took it back just a few laps later, and he just got caught up in some traffic. And then with 3 laps to go in stage, John Hunter Nemechek turns Cody Ware. Denny Hamlin will wind up winning stage number 1. Denny Hamlin will start the lead stage number 2. And during this stage, Chris Buescher has to come down pit road with problems with his right front tire. Noah Gragson gets turned after Ross Chastain moves him up, and AJ Allmendinger pokes the nose in the middle. Gregson gets turned, and only other notable thing that happened that stage was Denny Hamlin winning stage number 2. Start stage 3, Denny Hamlin leads it. Chris Buescher yet again comes down pit road early. I don't even know if they ever talked about why he came down again, but has another issue. He has to come down. Austin Hill has a loose wheel. The tire does not come off, but the nut comes off, and no caution comes out because of that. Chase Elliott's team, very notable, decides with his tire fall off coming with around 70 laps on tires, they're going to stop twice in the final stage instead of cutting it right in half like everyone else was doing, which is notable, and we'll talk about that and why in a second. Let's see. After his first stop, Chase Elliott's stop was way before everybody else. He cycled to the lead. Ty Dillon, Cole Custer have issues. Don't know exactly what happened there, but they have issues. Caution comes out. Chase Elliott, I believe, in 2nd or 3rd place. Alan Gustafson, a legend at this point in Chase Elliott fandom, They are screaming, loving this man because of his gutsy call, I would say, with him so high up in the point standings. A few laps later, caution for debris. Ty Dillon's brake rotor is on pit road. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. All cars pit except Ross Chastain. He is the only one who stays out. On the restart, a huge pileup. Bubba Wallace drives through Carson Hocevar, ending Wallace's day along with Riley Herbst and Zane Smith. Bubba, in his interview, says he misjudged it. Anybody with eyes says otherwise. Drove right through him, kept hitting him, and just wouldn't stop hitting him until he turned around. Bubba Wallace got the worst of it because his day was done. Hocevar just got a little bit of damage, but I think he was mostly fine after that. On the next restart, Chase Elliott winds up taking the lead. Denny Hamlin, during that green flag run, early on in the run, gets tight and puts Ryan Blaney in the wall, pushing him back a few more spots. Hamlin gets close, but does not pass Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott wins at Martinsville with Alan Gustafson's strategy call, getting them up close to the front and in a position to win. I, during the race, was not a big fan of the call. I was like, Chase Elliott's like super high in the points. This is a risky strategy. I mean, I know he's running not great, but I just didn't see it. And there's a reason I'm sitting on the couch watching the race and not on top of pit box. Because, hey, it wound up winning them the race. So kudos to them. Let's go to our good surprise. Who you got for your good surprise of the race?
So I did a couple because I didn't know who you were going to go with. But Team Penske had a phenomenal day. All three of their cars were in the top 10. And then I also just had another... so Team Penske and then also Josh Berry. I'm including him in there too. Josh Berry desperately needed, that strong day. He's been absolutely dog shit this whole year. And then another strong run by Ty Gibbs. Just want to throw his name in there. But yeah, my good surprises of the day, they all had great days. Actually, I'll let you do your good surprise first. Go ahead.
My good surprise of the race, I guess kind of the obvious one, was Shane Van Gisbergen was running top 10 the entire day. Was very good, but I believe was the only, besides Ross Chastain staying out on the old tires, he wound up finishing, I think, like in the mid-teens or something like that. So you can't even say he had a good, he finished 16th place. So yeah, pretty not great for Chastain standards. SVG was up front all day, just missed out on the top 10, finished 11th. He's been just about the only competitive Trackhouse car this year. Very good day for him. My bad surprise, I mean, I think it has to be Bubba Walsh. He was not running phenomenally. With the Reddick winning for the past 6, you expect that team to be good. Wasn't running great, and then just junks himself in a moment of anger. Didn't love it. Didn't see the use of that. I mean, I understand. If you want to get him like during a green flag run and you're not going to, low risk type situation, sure, go for it. It's Martinsville. It happens. But junking yourself over that seems a bit silly to me. Who was your bad surprise?
So I was in the similar boat. I wrote 23-11. Obviously, Bubba Wallace had a terrible day, but also Tyler Reddick was nowhere to be found all day too. Winning 4 races, you think he'd be up there, but short tracks aren't his strong suit. And I think he got in the teens. He was nowhere to be found pretty much all day. His name was never mentioned on the broadcast except where the hell is he? But yeah, 23-11 pretty much had a terrible day. Kyle Larson I also thought would be a little bit more of a factor at Martinsville. He has a very good average finish there, and he was pretty much driving around like 7th to 9th all day. He's not really like a bad surprise because Hendrick Motorsports, everyone was panicking about Hendrick Motorsports. Oh boy, they're in trouble! I knew they were not in trouble. They just needed to, a little bit luck on their way. Obviously, they're not maybe where they're usually at because they're at this point they have at least one win by now, if not a couple. But they're all three of their 4 cars got a top 10 yesterday, and the other guy is a backup with Justin Allgaier. So I'm not really panicked. And then again, obviously Chase Elliott won yesterday, so that'll put the conversation pretty much asleep. But yeah, Kyle Larson I did think would be a little bit better just because he's a pretty good average finish at Martinsville. But ready to jump to, who did you have for your pick for Martinsville?
My race pick, I'll get to that in a sec because I wanted to piggyback off what you were talking about, Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson should be ashamed of himself for one reason. The driver of the number 2 car beat Kyle Larson at Martinsville. Larson fans are in shambles at this disgrace. Austin Cindric, top 5 the whole day. The caution comes out, screws him over because he pitted. A lot of guys hit a couple laps early, and they wound up leapfrogging him. His team, I believe, cut it straight in half. He does wind up getting, I believe, 8th place. So he's in the top 10, but almost had back-to-back top 5s. Proud of my man.
I was going to say, wow, are you an Austin Cindric fan? I can't tell by your head-to-toe fit.
Yeah, we've got the whole drip on today. Just wait till I bust out the jacket. Then folks will really know. Also want to give credit.
Bust it out on a nice summer day.
Yeah, I know. Also want to give credit. Was Ryan Blaney had top 3 pace all day. Got walled, put in 6th, but we kind of expected him to be a bit more, up in the fight. Obviously, he's very good at Martinsville, but I expect to see him, just a very good race by Team Penske, as you said. But my race pick, I don't have on here. So I'm going to let you go first. Who was your race pick?
So my race pick for Martinsville was Denny Hamlin. He ended up getting 2nd place. Unless you picked Chase Elliott, which I can't remember, I definitely beat you. I thought Denny Hamlin was going to go for the stage 1, 2, and winner of the race, and obviously lead the most laps. Didn't finish the deal, but did you pick Chase Elliott? Because if not, I won.
No, I realized that I read my note wrong, and I actually picked Ryan Blaney for the race pick and the 36 for 36. So that's why I was talking about. That's why I was in my notes. I was like, why did I put that in there? Oh, it's because I picked him. He finished 6th place, so I lost, which means you get to pick first for, not next week, the week after Bristol.
All right, to the Hendrick fans that are internally screaming, I think, and to the Kyle Larson fans that are internally screaming, saying, oh boy, he's in trouble. I think it comes to the end in 2 weeks. I think Kyle Larson, we're going to one of his best tracks at Bristol. I think the slump is going to come to an end. Everyone's like, we are almost a year out for no Kyle Larson wins. I think we are going to finally end that streak. I think Kyle Larson gets it done. Like I said, going to one of his best tracks. Hendrick got their first win of the season, so that takes a little pressure off. Who is your Bristol pick?
My Bristol pick is not going to be Young Money. My Bristol pick is going to be the person on a hot streak as of right now, Denny Hamlin. I think gets it done. I think he's good. If it's regular tires where they wear regularly, or if it's the PP compound that we get, which is high tire wear, and they got to conserve the tires. He's very good at that. I predict he will win at Bristol. And who is your 36 for 36?
When you were recapping the Cup race, if you saw me scrambling on my phone to pull up the leaderboard, it's because I had Ryan Preece and I did not write down where he finished. Well, I finally got it. He finished 12th place. Decent day. Did think he'd be a little bit better. RFK, they've had a strong start to this season. To say that a 12th place for them isn't great is kind of like, it is a good, finish for them, but they've just been running so strong that you're like, well, I thought they'd be better. But 12th place, average day, I'd say, for Ryan Preece. Who's your 36 for 36?
I believe my 36 for 36 was Ty Gibbs, who wound up getting 6th place. Was very good all day. Feeling pretty good about that, which means I believe I pick first for Bristol.
Okay, go ahead.
My 36 for 36 at Bristol is going to be the 17 of Chris Buescher. RFK doing very good. Get pranked. Got him good. And I think if it is the high tire wear, was past 2 to 3 years, I expect he'll be good. Who is your 36 for 36 pick?
Well, I had Chris Buescher too. Again, RFK, strong start. I think Chris Buescher is pretty good there. Yep, he's the only one I wrote down. Chris Buescher. Guess me and you are partnering up in 2 weeks.
I guess we'll both be miserable when he crashes. Alrighty. I am ready to go into the NASCAR news of the week, unless you got more.
Nope, go ahead. I'm loading up my news.
Okay. NASCAR news of the week, a lot this past week. So folks, buckle in. And once again, I got to give a shout out because most of this was sourced from Matt Weaver's article on motorsport.com. So check that out for a more in-depth look. But the new nuggets this week is Joe Gibbs Racing alleges that Chris Gabehart immediately used Joe Gibbs Racing info and created a focus plan filling in Spire info where there was Joe Gibbs Racing info. Joe Gibbs Racing says Gabehart deleted messages with Spire owner Jeff Dickerson shortly after Gabehart took the information and says that it would be crucial evidence that is now gone. Text messages, poof, deleted. They said looks a little fishy. Joe Gibbs Racing asked the judge to make Spire detail exactly what it is that Gabehart's job is to prove that it is a significant amount of overlap between what he was doing with JGR. Gabehart says his cool-off period should have ended when Joe Gibbs Racing stopped paying him. And that since they stopped paying him, he just shouldn't have a cool-off period. Joe Gibbs Racing also discovered one message from Gabehart and Jeff Dickerson from November 18th that hinted that they predicted that a lawsuit might be in their future if they continued on what their path was. Spire President Bill Anthony posted a declaration that Spire was not paying Gabe's legal fees, but a text message between Gabehart and Dickerson alludes to otherwise. Joe Gibbs Racing also had issue with Gabehart being at Darlington and having an untraceable two-way radio that he could discuss privately with them and the team and perform duties similar to what he was doing race day at Joe Gibbs Racing. Also, Jeff Dickerson's phone has a 30-day deletion mode. Basically, it deletes all messages after 30 days, on kind of a rolling basis, and he turned it off the day that Joe Gibbs Racing added Spire to the lawsuit against Gabehart. Both of them have released PowerPoints. I went through them a little bit, but they were kind of boring, so I didn't do a ton, and also most of it was summarized by Matt Weaver. Thank you, Matt. And that is all of our NASCAR news of the week. Bit of a doozy this week. A lot going on. A lot of allegations sent back and forth. But we can go into the regular off-track news. Lexi, start us off. What do we got going on out of the racetrack?
All right, I kind of got a shit ton. All right, so I'll start with O'Reilly. Obviously, Cletus McFarland is racing this weekend. That'll be interesting to watch. We'll see how he does there. There's obviously a lot of controversy whether or not he should have been approved to race. We'll see how he does in Rockingham. Let's hope he keeps it in one piece, because he is good for the sport. It does bring in a ton of viewers for NASCAR, but yeah, just gotta keep it clean, make it the whole race, run all the laps. Let's go for that. Kyle Petty will join the CW broadcast next weekend for Rockingham. Josh knows I can't stand Kyle Petty. I don't care if I make that public. He drives me fucking nuts. But yep, can't wait to listen to him next weekend during the O'Reilly broadcast. Darius Rucker joined Legacy Motor Club as an investor. He's going to be obviously joining Jimmy Johnson and Richard Petty. But I saw that he was going to be doing more of like the music side of things and trying to bring, some publicity through music maybe to the race team. Let's see. Brad Keselowski obviously raced his 600th start this weekend. His goal is to hit 800 career Cup starts. That puts him at least, another 5 years out that he wants to race. He said that, well, it's a good thing that I drive for my own team because I can stay as long as I want or fire myself if I'm doing too shit and I find someone better. But his goal is to make it to 800 career Cup starts. Tyler Reddick and 2311 are close to signing a contract extension. Obviously, the 4 wins this year probably is going to help boost his numbers a little bit to what he gets paid, so he got those at a perfect time. Let's see. I don't know if you saw the video, but a fan came up to Justin Haley during an autograph signing and something with Daniel Dye and wanting him to sign something with Daniel Dye with the comments. I don't know what he wrote on the piece of paper, but sign something in relation to the homophobic comments he made. In my opinion, that fan's a fucking idiot. He tried to basically create a bigger situation than needed to be and get Justin Haley in trouble. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I thought it was dumb. It's just people trying to get, social media hits. It's dumb. And putting Justin Haley in that kind of position where he has to decide whether to be, not be as, fan engaging as he probably wants to be versus, having a bad look, and it's just stupid. I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
That was annoying.
And also too, I could see myself, if I was signing shit for like an hour straight, I could see myself like maybe blacking out a little bit and not being 100% focused, because you're like, okay, Alexia Harrington, Alexia Harrington, Alexia Harrington, Alexia Harrington, and maybe not noticing. So thank God that he noticed. Could you imagine that he signed that? And actually, a great example. Dale Earnhardt Jr. said that he was signing autographs during the weekend, and he obviously wasn't 100% paying attention and signed 2 Chris Buescher cards. Like, that's what I could see myself doing. Like, can you imagine if Justin Haley wasn't paying attention and signed something like that? You know, that would ruin Justin Haley's career, a publicity nightmare. So yeah, fan's a fucking idiot. Let's see, I think I got one more thing. NASCAR announced the 2027 Hall of Fame nominees. Here we freaking go. Alright, modern era nominees are Greg Biffle, Neil Bonnet, Tim Brewer, Jeff Burton, Randy Dorton, Ray Elder, Ernie Elliott, Kevin Harvick, Randy LaJoie, Jack Sprague. 2 names of that list are picked. Pioneer ballot, Ray Fox, Harry Hyde, Banjo Matthews, Herb Nabb, Larry Phillips. 1 of those are picked. Landmark Award, Alvin Hawkins, Lisa France Kennedy, Dr. Joseph Matolioli? Unknown. Les Richer, and T. Wayne Robertson. 1 of those are picked. Obviously, me and you aren't as familiar with some of the older people in the Hall of Fame nominees, but if I had to guess, I would say that Kevin Harvick is pretty much a lock-in if I had to guess this year. And then I'm between whether or not it would be Jeff Burton and Greg Biffle. Obviously, both I would say deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I do wonder if the tragedy with Greg Biffle does kind of sway some opinions this year. If I had to guess, I would probably say that he's going to make it this year. Not to say that he doesn't deserve it, he does, but obviously I think that could put his name up front, you know, and people say that he deserves it. I don't know if you had any thoughts on who you thought was going to make it in. I can say it again and say it slower because I know I flew through it.
It's all right. I do agree with you. I think Kevin Harvick is a lock champion. Pretty easy. The second one I am a little bit less sure about. I don't think it'll be Jeff Burton. I don't want to say he doesn't have a chance, but I don't think it'll be him. I think potentially, I agree with you, Greg Biffle could get in via the sympathy vote. But I also think it also could be like somebody like Neil Bonnet. And I know it might sound strange, but I feel like he was pretty good back in the day. I don't know. I see he I think has a outside chance. And I would say probably a better chance, in my opinion, than Jeff Burton. But I still do think Greg Biffle gets the second one. And in terms of the other 2, forget it, dog. I have no clue.
No. All right, I finished up my off-track stuff. Yes, I did. Okay, you can go.
Well, you covered just about everything that I have. So, I don't have a ton. But I guess there's a couple. My last little shout out, I guess, would be kind of what you already talked about was Ty Gibbs, and the broadcast brought it up as well. But a great start to this season. Top 5 in 4 of the last 5 races. And I feel like, I feel like every season there's kind of a period where Ty Gibbs really heats up, and everyone's like, he gets runs up front a bunch, gets good finish, and everyone's like, is it a matter of time? It's just a matter of time before he gets the win. And then he just doesn't get it. And so my question, I guess, to you is this finally the year that he gets it done? He's been very hot right now. He's, name's been tossed in the mud recently with these lawsuit kind of things. Is it kind of like a Denny Hamlin situation where Denny Hamlin seems to thrive off of, being his attention and name getting tossed around crazy, controversy, all that. Do you think that it will help him and get him to a win? Or do you think it's just been kind of circumstance that he's done so well with all these things going on?
Well, I was going to say, dare I say that the bad publicity and slashing his name is doing him well? Because, man, he's on fire this year. Well, the first 2 races weren't great, but all of a sudden, as soon as the lawsuit kind of came out and they went to court and made all those allegations, he's been on fire. So, yeah, I think it kind of builds a little fire under him, and he's been running great. The win's obviously coming, If you're running great consistently, the win at some point is going to come, and he's been finishing top 10, I don't know how many races in a row it is, but it's been obviously a few. So yeah, I think the win's going to come I think it'll come at some point this year, and I think honestly sooner rather than later.
I agree. And I, kind of like I said, he was good at Bristol with the super high wear tire compound. So maybe 2 weeks, that question gets put to bed and we say we can predict the future. My only last other thing, Austin Cindric, 2 weeks ago, I think he was I don't even know. He's in the 20s, high 20s in points. After 2 weeks of work, he's up to 18th in points. Shout out to my man. Anything else for you, Alexia?
Oh, good to go. Finished
Okay.
up.
Just had to make sure we toss that one in there. Folks, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been the Draft and Drive podcast. Tune in. Not next week. We'll be off with the off week, Easter Sunday. The week after that, we'll be back to cover the O'Reilly race at Rockingham and Bristol and the Cup race at Bristol. See you then. Subscribe. And bye-bye. Thank you.